Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of January 27th, 2026. I now call the meeting to order at 5:31, and I would like to ask the clerk for the roll call, please.
Mayor Sidney.
Present.
Revimo.
Present.
Councillor Legree. Councillor McWhorter.
Present.
Councillor McDonald.
Present.
Councillor Sabalski.
Present.
Councillor Andrew Dick.
Present.
Mayor Sidney, we do have quorum.
Thank you. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Can I please have you stand for O Canada? Any declaration of interest? Hearing and seeing none. We'll move into our public meeting. The first one is the zoning bylaw amendment, 23 Booth Road, 10003552221, Ontario, Inc. If I would like to ask our representative from JP2G? No? Oh, Ashley? Sorry. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So this is through Section 34 of the Planning Act. So for a zoning bylaw amendment, for the application on the agenda, the applicant or their authorized agent will be given the opportunity, if desired, to briefly explain to the committee the nature of their application and to answer any questions that may arise during the hearing. All members of the public in attendance who wish to provide oral comments with respect to the application will have the opportunity to address the committee following the presentation by the owner and/or the agent. And all comments and information submitted, whether orally or in writing, including identifying information, becomes part of the public record and could be made publicly available at any point, including on the town's website and other electronic forms of publication in accordance with the Planning Act requirements. Before speaking, anyone providing comments is asked to clearly state their name and address for the record and to provide their contact information on the sign-in sheet with the recording secretary following the hearing. Only the applicant and the registered owner of any land to which the plan or bylaw applies and specified public agencies may appeal the decision of the town on the matter, in accordance with the instructions on the notice of decision issued following this hearing. There are no third-party appeals permitted under the Planning Act. And then I can confirm that the required notice for all applications or this one application on the agenda was given in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Is there anybody from the public here to speak on this application? Hearing and seeing none. All right. Any questions from council? Revimo?
Okay, when I look at the attached drawing, I see a fenced compound, and I note that that looks like, and I'm only going from memory, that looks like scrap wood. So I'm assuming they're going to take that up and move it. Now, does that go into our waste site, or can that go somewhere else? And is that a consideration with this application?
Scale?
Yeah, through you. Mayor Sidney. So they have not provided any indication in terms of what they're going to be demolishing. We understand that they're going to be building a fenced compound for their, for towed vehicles. Any demolition waste will go to the landfill in accordance with our waste disposal policy. Thank you.
Review?
My impression is that this isn't scrap wood in the sense that it's a demoed building. It's some of the debris left over from a previous operation. I think it looks like from the road when I was looking at this property for something else that it was like I say, sawdust and wood chips and busted pieces of timber.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, so that's either related to the flooring operation or Ensign. I know it was storing some material there. But either way, if there's any material that needs to be disposed of, it needs to be done properly, for sure.
Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none. Okay, we will move on to the next public meeting. Proposed budget public meeting. Public meeting to receive feedback, comments on the 2026 proposed budget. Is there anybody from the community that would?
We're going to do the presentation for the staff and then invite anybody up for a comment.
Right. We're going to have staff do a presentation first, and then we'll have members from the public come up, and if they wish to speak on that. You turn it over to our treasurer, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this evening we have the mayor proposed 2026 budget public meeting, and we have the presentation on the screen. So on the slide on the screen there now, number 2. For tonight, this is the presentation of the 2026 mayor's proposed budget. So the deputy treasurer next to me here and myself are going to co-present this presentation and alternate between some of the slides. The first slide is a timeline we've been following, and we're in the red box currently, and that's the 30 days for council to submit amendments following the mayor's budget being proposed. And so we can move on to the next slide. So on this slide, what we've done is we've added some information on the previous slide as to how we've worked through the budget committee meetings and the schedules and the dates that have been having meetings to work on the budget with the staff, the budget committee, and ultimately to go to the mayor. Of note here, we had the first public budget meeting on November 12th. And through the process, there have been changes that have been directed by the budget committee to staff, and updates have been made and reviewed. So then on December 16th, the final direction was given to staff from the budget committee to prepare the budget committee's budget recommendations to the mayor. Then the mayor has reviewed these and presented the proposed budget on January 12th with his MDE 2026-0001. And on this slide, the link is provided to the town website where that is. And the mayor's proposed budget was then presented on January 13th. So this evening we're following up to that. So on the next slide, we have a list of strategies from the town's strategic plan, the road to 2035. We've included this slide in all the presentations because it takes elements that affect the budget process, and we listed them there. So as we've been preparing and reviewing and updating, this gives us some guidance as to the services provided in 2026 so they can be consistent with the services provided during 2025. Of course, that covers services such as fire, policing, roads, recreation, libraries, landfills, and waste collection, to name a few. And in preparing the budget, the effects of the levy is a focus that we keep in mind all through the process. So on the next slide, we've given the definition of the tax levy, which shows that the levy is the amount to be raised, and it's the difference between expenses and all other non-tax revenue to be collected. And throughout the process, we've been looking at, for 2026, a 1% levy increase above 2025 would represent $124,942. So if you go back and you were to look at the meetings that have been had, you'll see that referenced to quite often. The next slide is a summary of the mayor's proposed budget and updates. The operating budget for 2026 as proposed is $23,612,560. There were no updates or changes to the budget committee's draft 2026 budget taxation levy, and the taxation levy for that is listed there. It's $13,467,26, which represents a 7.73% increase over the 2025 taxation levy dollars. For the capital portion of the budget for 2026, it would be $10,744,080, and there were 4 updates to the budget committee's draft 2026 budget. One was to add council devices for the next term of council that had been previously taken out of one iteration of the budget. The community improvement plan was returned to the budget, and a roads project for Robert Drive was removed, and a sidewalk plow was added. So the total budget of those 2 categories is $34,356,640. On the next slide, we've given a chart to show the breakdown of the operating budget revenues, and the largest portion of this pie is the taxation, which represents the $13,467,26 levy that I just mentioned. On the next slide, we have a couple of charts of the operating budget's expenses, and what we're looking at here is the breakdown of expenses by category, and I think the takeaway from this slide is that between 2025 and 2026 budgets, the breakdown is essentially the same. So you'll see the same amount allocated to each of the different department areas to provide the services for the town. So on the upcoming slides, we had some questions from the last meeting, and we've prepared some extra information to give a bit of more detail and background there. So I'm going to hand that over to the Deputy Treasurer to look at those and explain them.
Thank you. So we'll start, okay, we're perfect, we're on the slide. So at the top of the slide, you'll see the, as the Treasurer was discussing, the 25 levy versus the 26 levy, and the increase year over year being $966,445, which gets us to 7.735%. What we'll see right under that's the breakdown of that. So we have operating costs, capital reserve contributions, and operating reserve contributions. That nets out as well, the 7.735. What we thought was important to provide out to council was how this affects the tax rate. The tax rate's derived from you have to think of it almost like a seesaw. So you have your assessment that we receive from MPAC, you have your levy in the middle, and you have your tax rate on the other side. So in a world where the town didn't receive any more new assessment from 25 to 26, that 6.71 would actually be 7.735. But because we've generated $5 million, or we've been provided, through MPAC, $5.1 million more assessment, you're going to see the tax rate go down a little bit just to make up for it. We're still going to net the same amount of tax levy, but so the $13.4 million, but we thought that was important to highlight here. Keeping in mind, we also have not received yet the county tax rates for 2026, nor have we received the education. So that's the tax rates set by the school boards in the province. We haven't received those yet as well, but again, for illustrative purposes, we did want to include them. What council will see here is the difference year over year on the median single-family residential property. We get that number straight from MPAC. It was updated from 171 to 172, 172,000, so you'll see that as well. The annual increase for the median single-family residential dwelling is $153.82, and per month that equates to about just shy of $13. What we also wanted to illustrate here for people, if they knew approximately what their property tax assessment from MPAC was, is per 100,000. So if you have a $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 MPAC assessment, this will give you some rough math, and you can multiply 100,000 by whatever to get your assessment. On the next slide, what we wanted to do is provide council and the public as well with a breakdown of where properties, residential properties within the town actually fall. So as noted, 172 was the single-family detached property assessment as of January 21st. The assessment is generated by MPAC, and it's retroactively calculated to the 2016 phase in valuation. So what this means at a high level is that if I built a home today and I were to be able to sell it for $1 million or $800,000, the assessment would actually be retroactively calculated back to what the figure would be in 2016. So that might be $300,000, that might be $280,000. It might be in that ballpark. I might be able to make $1 million in a sale, but my property tax assessment from MPAC would actually be retroactively back to that 2016 phase-in period. And again, as I just noted, real estate sales don't generally align in 2026 terms for MPAC for assessment. So again, what we noticed here, 2,000 properties are between $100,000 to $199,000 of assessment. That's 63% of all residential properties within the town of Renfrew. So we just thought this graph was an interesting one, and it was interesting. There is an outlier here for $7 million. That is a long-term or residential long-term care home in town, and so it's the outlier, and it might skew the average a little bit, but that number right there we thought was important because there are 3,199 properties, residential properties within the town, so we just wanted to make sure we had all of the data presented for council and the public. On the next slide, just more info on property assessment. So an increase in the assessment does not necessarily mean an increase in property taxes. What that line means is if the town as a whole, if MPAC does a reassessment for the town as a whole and the entire assessment goes up, it does not mean that everyone's property taxes are going up. It means that the tax rate will fluctuate so that we can net out to the same levy. So if everything doubles, the tax rate would effectively have to be reduced in order to make sure we're not overtaxing the public. So that's just an important thing to note there. If a home has increased in value less than the average, then the taxpayers may pay proportionally less taxes. So that's just another piece of information. It's kind of all about finding your piece of the pie for the total assessment in the town, what your portion is. That's generally how your taxes move. The next slide is it's a graph that just shows all of the capital budget that was recommended for this process. It nets out to the 10.7 million. It also identifies all the funding sources, so you'll see taxation, grant, reserves, development charges, borrowing, and unfinanced at this time. And then the next slide identifies the projected reserves for 2026. And again, it just kind of speaks to the capital budget where it shows how things are being financed, and then it also shows the transfers into reserves. You'll see items like the Canada Community Building Fund and our Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Those are our provincial and federal grants that we receive that's showing the allocation in, and then whenever we do use them for any work, be it capital or operating, there will be a financing entry out. And I'll turn it back over to the treasurer.
Thank you. One other little thing I was going to note on slide 11 is there's an excellent link to the MPAC website at the bottom there that you can click on, and it provides a short video that gives an excellent demonstration of how the assessment affects taxation. It's a worthwhile watch for a few minutes if you have a moment. Just going back to slide 14. So ARL is the annual repayment limit, and that is something that's measured by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing from the province for each municipality in Ontario. So what we're looking at here is the borrowing for 2026 and how it would affect the ARL for 2026. And it provides the capacity we have for borrowing that the ministry considers acceptable and within the parameters of a municipality for the province of Ontario to not be borrowing in excess of what is a manageable amount. On the next slide, there's a debt listing and internal borrowing. So these are the lists of internal and external borrowing and the planned additional borrowing that would occur based on the 2026 budget. And on the next slide is a water and wastewater. So also part of the budget process, but budgeted separately, water and wastewater budgeted expenditures for 2026. The water budgeted expenditure for 2026 is 4.5 million, and the wastewater budgeted expenditures are 3.6 million for a total of 8.1 million. And the chart at the bottom is from our water financial plan, water rate study. And what it illustrates is that for an average billing in 2026, the increase will be 2.5% for a water and wastewater user. And that anticipated annual increase year over year would be $32.24 for the 2026. And for this presentation, all the detailed reports with all the line by line of our accounts and everything that makes up our budget, they are all part of the presentation and the attachments to the mayor's MDE, and you can go there and find all those reports that tie into this presentation, and they'll continue to be posted there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members of the public wish to come up and speak? Yeah. Please make sure your mic's on. I didn't have my mic on.
Hear me okay?
And state your name and confirm you are a resident of the town of Renfrew.
Absolutely. So, my name is Andy Bolt. I live at 97 Arundel Avenue in Renfrew, and I've been there for 35 years. And I've been a resident of Renfrew for the better part of 70 years. First of all, I wanted to thank Renfrew Town Council to allow us to come back and speak again tonight at this late stage of the budget. And but again, I want to thank the Budget Committee and the administration team for your commendable efforts in trying to develop this budget. I've sat through a lot of the deliberations on this and watched lots of them on television or streaming as well. And it's been very evident that each and every one of you have been very invested in this process and put an incredible amount of time, effort, and creativity into trying to get this right. And I can only hope that the community and anybody who reads the paper, watches the streaming, really is aware and appreciates the devotion and effort that you've put into to putting this proposal together. And while I am not sold on the number that came out of it, I certainly am very, very pleased with the effort that you put into it. You may recall that I attended the public consultation session held here on November the 12th, and at that time provided my personal input as well as others. And in reflection on the status of the budget at that time, it was sitting at 8.81%, the levy increase. Several presenters, including myself, highlighted to the town that we felt it was an absolute crisis that we were within, and provided objective samples to support our opinions. The budget at that time was characterized by me as a belt-tightening budget. You can see where progress had been made, but it was proposed that the draft budget should be rescinded at that time and reworked into what I would call a crisis budget, representing what the town was having to deal with at that time. And considering the abnormally high increases of 2024 and 25, it was suggested by different people, different amounts, but I would say a target between 0% and 4% would be a more realistic goal. So if we fast forward 2 months and looking at what was presented a week ago, there was a tremendous amount of work that was done. But nevertheless, the proposed levy increase was reduced from 8.81% in November to 7.73% now, or just a modest reduction of 1.08%. In monetary terms, if I got the numbers right, the tax levy was reduced by only $135,000 after 2 months' worth of work to $13.5 million. The overall operating budget was reduced by only $72,000 to $23.6 million, or about 0.3% reduction. The capital budget, however, was cut back from $12.1 million in November to $10.7 now, as reported a few minutes ago. So it looked like it went down about 11.6%. So how to interpret that in a couple of words, I guess. In spite of all of this hard work, the needle really has not moved in any significant way since November. To me, this strongly suggests that we're still in a belt-tightening budget mode when a crisis budget was really needed. And putting all this in perspective and assuming that this mayoral budget is approved, the levy increase for 2024 through 2026 will be 11.22%, 10.35%, and 7.73% respectively. If you compound that over the 3-year period, that works out to about 32.1%, with no evident plan for slowing this down. There's no plan that I've seen, heard, listened to that would indicate that we have a path forward to bring that down to a more proper increase rate. And I haven't seen a risk assessment for preventing overspending of this 7.73% budget either. Perhaps it exists and I just haven't seen it. I'm going to state the obvious to say that this is not a temporary increase that we're about to experience or have experienced that, well, we'll have to, pay the pain for a couple of years and it'll go away. This is here for good, and it will be compounded on every year in the future. Despite this high level of taxation, critical infrastructure projects like Hall Avenue have to be pushed out because we just don't have the funds. Now, to provide some personal, kind of measure of impact, I will offer, how does this affect my own home? Linda and I, my wife Linda and I, live in a modest, I would say, 45-year-old split-level bungalow with a single garage. Our property assessment is $278,000. Assuming that the proposed mayoral budget is approved, and I did my math right, our taxes will increase to about $5,704 in 2026. But that represents an increase of almost $1,200 over the last 3 years, or we're seeing about an increase of pretty close to $400 a year. Now, I know Councillor Cebulski had brought up the question last week, and it was mentioned in the presentation a few minutes ago about a newer home. How is that affected? Well, my son happened to move back to Renfrew with his wife and family in 2022 and built a home in the Hunter Gate subdivision. His taxes for 2025, he saw a tax increase of $629.86, and his total levy in 2025 was $9,754. This year, again, if I did my math right, he's going to see another $600 increase this year. I mean, that's a lot of money for a young family. So when you think of those two examples, there should be no surprise why families are finding it unaffordable to live in Renfrew. It'd be fair to say that he said, Dad, did I make the right decision to move to Renfrew? As Councillor Cebulski attempted to point out again last week, this is a major deterrent to the construction of new homes in Renfrew, I believe. And undoubtedly the same impact that would apply to businesses, either existing businesses or new businesses that want to try and move here. So let me close with some specific questions and suggestions. Throughout this budget process, there's been a constant reference to strong mayor budget. I know that came from the province. During the January 13th council meeting, Mayor Sidney referred to this budget as the mayoral budget, and certainly was presented that way tonight. Considering this terminology and process, I will direct my questions directly to Mayor Sidney with the utmost of respect. I will mention list all the questions first, Mayor Sidney, and some of them are just suggestions. Some of them I'm sure you wouldn't be answering tonight. But number one, on January 13th, Mayor Sidney, you did not expand on your insights into this mayoral budget. It would be very helpful and appreciated by the ratepayers of Renfrew, and certainly for myself, if you would provide your personal perspectives and insights into your proposed budget. Number two, more specifically, given that you have full authority to accept or change this mayoral budget, how would you justify to the ratepayers of Renfrew that another 7.73% increase is merited and reasonable following two consecutive increases of 11.22 and 10.35%? Number three, the Budget Committee was assigned the daunting task of providing a recommendation for the 2026 mayoral budget. What specific goals and targets did you provide to the Budget Committee aside from the submission deadlines? For example, did you recommend maximum levy increase percentages, capital spending limits, critical project lists, staffing levels, or any other objective budget targets for them to try and hit? Number four, have you identified or envisioned any specific actions and timelines for returning Renfrew tax levies to a sustainable and competitive level as compared to other communities in Renfrew County? Number five, considering that the capital budget for 2026 had to be reduced from almost 21 million when it very first started to 10.7 now, or a reduction of about 50%. What are your plans for meeting the capital funding needs of Renfrew in the medium term? Now, on a specific budget item, and more of a comment than just an expression of my puzzlement, you added back the community improvement plan review to the mayoral budget at a cost of $50,000. I know how CIP works just from time on the planning board. You justified this amendment on aligning ourselves with housing and to aligning ourselves with the province. The example you provided was potentially helping someone construct a basement apartment. Considering the extremely tight capital budget and current need to postpone critical projects, how could we possibly consider this as a priority? At a time when we can't afford to repair our roads and pushing projects out, how can we afford to assist homeowners with the construction of basement apartments? So I'll leave it at that. I thank you again for the opportunity to come and speak to you, and again, I can't thank the staff and the council for the amount of time. It blows my mind, to be honest with you, how much time went into trying to pull this very difficult budget together. Thank you.
I'm going to answer the insight one first, and then the other ones I might need to process. So the unfortunate part is I was away for all of these things on medical leave. The committee was appointed so that all of council could be a part of it. When I returned at the beginning of January, I sat down with the directors and the Treasury Department and the CAO and the clerk and went through everything that they talked about, everything that council did. I think where, excuse me, where I don't struggle with, but I hear what everybody's saying, and trust me, I don't disagree with any of it. But at the end of the day, we're hearing we need to get our roads fixed, we need to do this, we need levels of service to stay the same, all of that stuff. So in order for us to do that, this is where we're at. If we want to cut services and we want to cut back on projects because it's a crisis, then if that's something the council wishes to do, then it's we can look at that, but, you know, it's the borrowing of fixing roads, it's all of that stuff. So, you know, I think they've done a great job, but it comes down to, do we cut services, cut employment, cut projects, and then projects get worse and worse, and then they get more expensive as we go. So that's kind of where I was looking at it from an inside perspective. Trust me, I don't want to see them go up. My taxes are ridiculous, and it's evident that nobody wants this to happen. But at the same time, if we cut services and we cut programs, we cut staffing, we don't do roads, then does Renfrew continue to deteriorate in other ways? So I respect everything you're saying, but again, it comes down to, does the citizens of Renfrew want that? Do they want the roads to continue to deteriorate? Do they want programs and stuff to stop? Do they want, you know, less people doing less work? You know, so that's kind of where I was looking at it from. Council did do a great job. If there's the opportunity to look at something else and do a cut of something, then by all means, I'm open to everything. But that's kind of where I was looking at it from, you know, you hear everybody talk about the things we're not doing. So we're trying to do them, but at the same time, it's not free. And that's the hard part of trying to juggle. How do you move forward, stay the same, and kind of go backwards with taxes? It's that juggling act. So that's why I was, you know, that's what the committee proposed. The $50,000 that I added back in is, and Reeve Emo has been really involved with the housing component of it, so he knows a heck of a lot more than I do. But when we were down at Roma last week, we met with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and what it does is it lines up, if we have that money available, and it does line us up with the province's initiatives for housing and more housing, we are in a position then, should there be grants that the province has, that we are in line with that, so we can be kind of first at the gate, I think, if that's, and Revimo might be able to clarify that a little bit more, so that I'm not saying something I shouldn't be saying, but if Reeve, you want to just sort of cite that part?
When the mayor came back, I had chaired the meeting, so I sat down with staff and briefed them on it. Suggested CIP should be moved back into it, because when you look at the legislation, the last three pieces, and I'm not going to try and name them because I always get the names wrong because they put these exotic names on them. We've lined up very well. We've signed the MOU with the county. We've identified the land. We've agreed with the Boncher Manor project. And the CIP allows us also to reach into the county CIP, which is called HYPE. It's directed towards housing. We didn't have that similar piece in our existing CIP program, and so it could help us in alignment with somebody if they came in to then go to the province and say, look, the upper tier has put money into this project, the town has put money into this project in terms of of whatever the CIP grant is, because a lot of the times that money we're hopeful will be used for that last 60 feet or 100 meters that goes from the street into a larger project. Because prime example is the county lands. The biggest thing that's holding it up is likely going to be tying back out to the O'Brien Road. Most of that system's going to have to be enlarged if any kind of a development goes on in there. So we've had conversations with two not-for-profits and also a developer about putting units in there, and that's going to be the biggest, I think probably the biggest impediment to it is because of that, I'll call it the last 100 meters, it's longer than that. And so this allows, there is some provincial funding available for that, again, loosely called the last 100 meters, but they also want to see buy-in from the lower level of government, and that's us. So that was the impetus to putting it back in, was the study has to be completed, and that would enable us to take a look at whether or not we could add that the housing and housing infrastructure component into the CIP program. I also have just two other things, if I might.
Okay.
So again, with Hall Street, probably I was the villain in removing that at this point, simply because it's my impression and feeling that the Hall Street, Harry end of Hall Street, I think that and the Hall Street extension are a direct link to housing improvement, and I really think the province, I think we need to make some repeated presentations to the province for extra funding for that. I think that that's too big a project for the town to take on its own. I think it's provincial and federal funding should be tied into that. I also have suggested to the Minister of Transportation, because it's going to be a route that takes some of the traffic off of O'Brien Road and Highway 60 once 417 is here, that it is also should be considered for some kind of a connecting link 2.0 project, because I think those are the two reasons why it's too big for the town, and I think it's going to have to be over-designed, and I don't think we should be paying for that over-design. And then the last piece about a long-term financial plan, if you look at the notice of motions tonight, you'll notice that there is a long one that I presented, but it's been on behalf of council. We've talked about what kind of financial plan can we put in place. We can't have any impact on the direct impact on the 2027 through to 2030 budget, but by putting that piece in there and indicating to staff that they really need to take a look at this, and it all talks about pulling back on some of the operating costs and other things, and it talks, I tried to list everything that we talked about and some new ones to try and help staff get a sense of what they might be facing after the next election. So I agree with you, there is no long-term plan. There's been some loose, and that's the wrong term. There's been a lot of conversation amongst us to try and form one, but this allows staff the breathing time to put something together. So, thank you.
Mr. Bolt, just so you know, I will address your questions. I will do it in the form of a video so that people can actually see me and hear me as opposed to having to read it, so it looks like somebody else didn't write it for me. And I hope to do that by the end of the week, beginning of next week, so that there will be answers to your questions. Before we get into council's questions or whatever, I'm going to just make sure we hear from the public first, and then we'll, if there's clarification. Okay. Yeah, if it's clarification, sure.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And thank you, Mr. Bolt, for the work you put into, you've been here a few times and presenting, and I appreciate it, and I think most of us here do appreciate it. And I like how you framed it. It's a crisis budget. It should be. You're aware that we started with basically a 7% levy increase at the start of this year, and we had to absorb it, and that next year we're having to absorb we're starting at a 7% approximately. So what stands out for you where we can improve, if you feel comfortable speaking with regard to that now? Like, where do you think we can hone in to deal with some of the issues? If you feel comfortable, or if you want to email us later, I'll leave that up to you.
I don't have any specific things. I mean, it's a sum of a lot of little things, is I think what you're going to end up with. But it's really looking, you know, I mean, there was talk the last, you know, the zero-based budget, and where do you go? Like, I've been through processes where, and one in particular I remember, it was the Harvard Business School that had a model that come in, and they said that you had to find over 30% savings in 1 year in an operation. And this was a Renfrew operation, okay? I absolutely didn't believe it could be done. You know, we're tight, we're good management, and we're efficient. And they put us through a process, and we found double that. I left the company a while thereafter, and they did it again successfully. So, you know, if you set targets, it can be achieved. And you know, it's the way you go through it and analyze it But I think it all starts, and Mayor Sidney, where I was going at and what I'd be interested in hearing in your response when you do it is, and perhaps it didn't happen this way, but if it didn't, I would suggest you do it this way going forward. To me, the mayor, and if there's a CAO, the mayor and the CAO, and perhaps the finance director, should be sitting down before the budget process ever starts and says, okay, what can this town afford? Capital-wise, levy-wise, overall, okay? Their vision of what they think, where we should be going, and those are the marching orders that the budget committee should be starting with, not just put together a budget, we'll see what it looks like, and then we'll whittle it down from there. You start with a clear goal of what you're trying to achieve, but that goal should again tie back to that general strategic plan, but also there should be a very precise, medium-term plan of where you want to get to by when. You need to know where you're going before, to be able to get there, and not just, go with the wind type of thing. Things are going to happen along the way, and you adjust. And that's what I was trying to get a sense from in looking at the budget, and for the reasons that I asked the questions. So I'm not sensing that it's there, and I hope I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, it's an opportunity for improving it going forward. So I think it can be done, but I'm not sitting here with all the answers. I've been through processes that lead you to those answers. But if you don't have that goal from the start, you're never going to achieve it. Okay?
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Hearing and seeing none? Okay. Keep in mind it's a public meeting, right? So it's not directed towards staff. If you do have questions for staff, it can be done through emails and stuff like that, for sure. You sure there's nobody else from the public? All right. Thank you. That concludes the meeting. Moving on to delegations, there is none. Presentations, there is none. Announcements and community events. Before we get into that, because the public stuff is over, we're going to take just a 5-minute recess so we can get some presenter coming up later to set up his stuff. So we will take a 5-minute break. Welcome back, everybody. Before I do announcements and community events, I think we'll address the elephant in the room with, if anybody's noticing that there's been a change in somebody's attire. So I'll give a brief thing of why it happened, and then if Revimo wants to clarify anything. So back at the beginning of the Junior B hockey season, the mayor of Empire and I entered into a bet, I guess you would call it, that the 3-game between our Junior B team and their Junior B team, whoever won the 2 out of the 3, the other mayor would wear the other team's jersey at a council meeting. But unfortunately, that happened while I was off. So, Revimo, if you want to.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. We did lose 2 in a row. Fortunately enough, Councillor Zabalski subbed in for me in one of the games, so I'm going to hand this over to him in a little while. for the rest of the meeting, no, I wouldn't do that. So we did lose it. It was a good way of, for me, I was at the Empire game in Empire, got to get around and see some people. Both organizations, both hockey organizations were quite gracious and fun to be around, and really it was a good opportunity to have a conversation with some friends, people I've known in Empire a long time, and I know some of them come up here for the game the next night or 2 nights later. So, great idea. I think we should be a little more careful next year and do a little scouting ahead of time, you know, in September to make sure we know what we're talking about. But other than that, it was a pleasure to sub in for you. Thank you.
I appreciate you doing that. I will note that when I was here with the previous bet with Pembroke, we did win, and I got to go up and make the mayor of Pembroke wear our jersey. So we're kind of 1 for 1, but I appreciate the sportsmanship, Revimo. Moving on to announcements, a few things. The Town of Renfrew Council and members of the staff recently attended the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Roma Conference in Toronto, where we participated in 5 delegations, including several joint meetings with neighboring municipalities. These discussions provided a valuable opportunity to highlight Renfrew's unique strengths and challenges and to advocate for additional provincial support. Delegations included meeting with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Solicitor General. We discussed the rising policing costs and their impact on rural and small urban municipalities. The Minister for Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Gaming to address economic development, job creation, tourism, support for community events. We also met with the Ministry of Energy regarding small hydro facilities, with the Ministry of Transportation represented by Parliamentary Assistant to discuss the Highway 17 twinning project. I can say that the Ministry of Transportation did say that the budget is there and they are putting shovels in the ground by 2028 to start the process of the twinning of Highway 17. All of our delegations were positive, engaging. I believe they heard us. It was good delegations, and I want to thank the staff for all their hard work putting everything together. Our neighboring municipalities for the collaborations, and our MPP Billy Deneau, who sat in on a few of the delegations as well with us. So it was a great opportunity for us to put Renfrew on the Ontario map again and to make sure that they hear us. So I believe they did, and we're looking forward to following up with them. Also a reminder, the winter program guide for December, January, and February is now available, featuring a wide range of events, programs for all residents of all ages. They fill up quickly, so we encourage you to look at it, and hard copies are available at customer service desk at MyFM Center, and the guide can also be viewed online at renfrew.ca. Upcoming events, our annual Fruit Fest, Family Day Winter Carnival, proudly sponsored by Girlies Outdoors, is just around the corner. The event will take place on Family Day weekend, Sunday, February 15th, Monday, February 16th, at the MyFM Center. Families can look forward to a variety of fun, indoor and outdoor winter activities for all ages. We are currently seeking volunteers to help make this event a success. Volunteer roles include assisting with the scavenger hunt table, supervising the inflatables, staffing the information station, and providing general event support. If anybody is available to help and are interested, please contact Janine at programs@renfrew.ca. We are also at that point of the year where we're looking to put a call out to performers who are interested in showcasing their talents at upcoming community events and concerts. We are looking for musicians, dancers, entertainers of all kinds to be part of our event lineup, including our 2026 Canada Day celebration, Music in the Park on Sundays from June 28th to August 30th, and the Craft Beer and Food Truck Festival. Whether you perform as a single or as part of a band or a dance group or have a unique act that you'd like to share, it's a great opportunity to take the stage and contribute to these popular events. Deadline to apply is April 15th, 2026, and anybody interested in participating can contact the town through programs at renfrew.ca. And my last one is, I am proud to share that the Renfrew Town Council will be fielding a team for the 2026 Polar Plunge in support of our amazing Renfrew Special Olympic athletes. The plunge happens on Saturday, March 7th, 2026, between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the Renfrew OPP detachment on O'Brien Road. We'll share more info and details as we go along. I hope you consider supporting it. It's a great cause, and they do fantastic. They are fantastic athletes and represent Renfrew well. So thank you to the members of council who are going to partake in that. And yeah, any other announcements? Councillor Sobolski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just quickly on the NHA NHL Museum. They have a contest going on to the end of February, the hat trick contest. So please just check out their Renfrew Hockey Museum on Facebook or Instagram, or swing by the museum itself during its operating hours and check out the contest and absorb our beautiful museum that's out there.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Moving on to E, Committee of the Whole. The Renfrew Town Council convened a Committee of the Whole to consider reports for recommendations to Council. Mover, please. Councillor McWhorter, second by Councillor McDonald. All in favor? We are now in Committee of the Whole. So, Council, before we move on, with the support of Council, if they're okay with it, we would like to move E.2.3, the official plan review draft, up to the beginning so that our person here that's present doesn't have to sit through this, and I think there's a bit of a time constraint as well on his time. So if Council's okay with it, are you willing to allow him to come first? Is that okay? Yeah, perfect. Come on up, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for your indulgence. Forbes Simon, Senior Planner with JP2G, and I've been working on your official plan. And the last time I was here, I presented an issues and options report that identified sort of the scope of the update that we had identified through the early review of the document. What you have now before you is what I call a discussion draft. It's a red line document showing policies that are being proposed to be added, as well as policies proposed to be deleted. The hope is that this document is in sufficient shape to take it out to the public and agencies to get their comments on it. I believe it's been tabled with you for a couple of weeks now. You've had a chance to look at it. I've spoken to staff in detail, as well as one of your councillors prior to tonight. What I want you as council to appreciate is that there is plenty of time for wordsmithing and modifying the policies and tweaking them, adding and deleting. But I think we need to keep moving this forward and go to the public and circulate it to the agencies. And then once you have the benefit of those comments, you can make decisions as to what changes you want to make to this document prior to adoption. Once it's adopted by council, it is required to go to Renfrew County for final approval. Okay. I'm happy, Mayor, to answer any questions you have at this point in time, detail or general.
Okay, before we do that, I'm going to jump in to read the motion. So the motion is that the Committee of the Whole receive the draft red line official plan update attached to this report, and further that staff be directed to proceed with public and agency consultation on the draft red line official plan update in accordance with the Planning Act. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Sobolski. All right, now if anybody has any questions, we need to get on the table. Review.
Thank you. Very quickly, 17, 3, 4, and 5, the urban tree canopy. Number 5, where it talks about proponents identify location, ownership, size, and condition of all existing and proposed street trees as supporting materials for any Planning Act application. That's very new for us. And I think number 3, where it talks about requiring the approval of the town. I think that's going to cause us some problems. So is there a better way of wording that so it's not quite as aggressive, I guess would be the best term? Because I really think this is going to cause us some struggles in the future. I've been around for a couple tree bylaw debates around Renfrew County. It's always vicious. And people don't read this. They just know there's going to be a tree bylaw in Renfrew, and we'll be battling that for years.
Thank you very much, Reeve. I agree with you 100% that managing the cutting of trees is a bit of a mug's game, right? You don't always get it right. And I think that we've certainly got time, sir, to look at that and highlight that and see, to make sure that we can implement it and it makes some common sense. And I'll commit to doing that as sort of task 1. Again, these are the types of comments that can come right up to the moment of adoption. I'd like to collect them, not make any more changes at this point in time if that's okay with council. Collect these comments, and then once we have agency and public comments, I would come back with you with a report that identifies the comments you've provided, the public, the agencies, and then you start making decisions as council on the changes to this document that you want to see. But Reeve, I do take your point, and I concur with you 100% on the challenges with trees.
And there's a word, the wordsmithing, 2.2, just for further thought, 2.2.2, where it talks about where avoidance is not possible. And just avoidance seems like a very strange word to be in there. So that's just something to think about when you're driving around in the next couple of months.
Thank you.
Councillor Cebulski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I am the councillor that sat with Forbes. I read through this document in its entirety, and I'm going to do it again since the revisions have come. So I had the opportunity to sit for near 3 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and I presented upwards of 15 to 20 revisions, as Revimo just did. Very open dialogue. I picked on items that I felt potentially had red tape to them in regards to what the next steps of Renfrew would be. So I actually wore this document pretty close on my sleeve for a bit, and I'm not done with it. I have time still to spend on it. It was really a really good working portal to work through and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of good in here, and one of the reasons that I jumped on it, and I could be correct if I'm wrong, but this is something that crosses our desk once every 5 years. So I think it's a privilege for our group to have the opportunity to look at something like this, as the next group that comes in as council won't even have the opportunity to work on a document of this scale. So I'll leave it at that, but I have more work to do, but I've enjoyed the time sitting down and working with Forbes.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I enjoyed my time with you as well. There's nothing I'd rather do in life than sit down with someone and have a good old discussion on planning issues. it drives my wife crazy, right? It bores the hell out of people at cocktail parties. But when it's actually part of work, I really get a kick out of it, and it was a pleasure. Sir, thank you.
Revimo?
Final comment, I really like what you've done with 21 and 22, where it talks about short-term rentals and population. I think you nailed those down very nicely, so thank you.
If I may, there was one report, I believe the CAO has provided it to you, that came after the issues and options report, and that was your lands needs assessment, which was a population projection, which, Mayor, was a very unique approach to population projection because you've got this pending 417 coming to your front door. I was a director when the 417 came to Carlton Place. I was in Mississippi Mills, and we had some benefit of that. And then shortly after that, I was a director in Kempville that had the 416 go through it. And so I've had a fair bit of experience with what happens to a community when a 400 series highway comes. And essentially what you start seeing is a doubling of your growth rate. Where you may have had 0.5% annually, you're getting closer to 1.25% or 1.5% annual growth rate once the highway is extended to your community. So we were able to take that information and come up with a very unique population projection for you. And I think from what we gathered, you have enough land that you can work with within your boundaries. You're going to have to work near the end of your 30-year cycle on sewer and water issues, but that's very much on your day-to-day as it is right now. So I think that population projection, if you're interested in it, it's worth taking a look at. It is a unique methodology that we ran. It's good to hear that you had discussions about the highway coming. It's going to be a very positive change for the community, I would suggest, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, for you. And thank you, Councillor Sobalski, for meeting up with him. I've had some conversations with you, and I appreciate how you've spearheaded this with him. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I'll read the motion again just so we know we're not approving the official plan. The Committee of the Whole received the draft redlined official plan update attached to this report, and further that staff be directed to proceed with public and agency consultations on the draft redline official plan update in accordance with the Planning Act. We have a mover and a seconder. No other questions? Is that a question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Okay, moving back up to E.1. That the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council establish a Renfrew Sports and Recreation Wall of Fame working group, approve the draft terms of reference, and direct staff to bring forward the required bylaw for adoption, and further that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council appoint one council member and one staff member to the working group, and that the appointed council and staff member be authorized to appoint the remaining community members in accordance with the terms of reference. Mover, please. Councillor Sobalski, second by Councillor McDonald. I will turn it over to Specialist Eckford, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. As part of the 2026 corporate work plan, staff have set a goal to reestablish the Renfrew Sport and Recreation Wall of Fame, which was formerly located in the Kelly Holmes lobby of the MyFM Centre, near where the Renfrew Wolves office and NHA-NHL Birthplace Museum were added to the building. Since the renovations, the Wall of Fame has been dormant, with no new inductees recognized since 2006. The Renfrew and area Male Athlete of the Year, Female Athlete of the Year, and Team Honor Roll have likewise been dormant. Our goal in reestablishing the Wall of Fame and awards is to recognize the athletes, teams, volunteers, and others who have contributed to sport and recreation in our community over the last 20 or more years and into the future. In Appendix A, staff have provided a draft terms of reference to officially form a working group and establish a composition. If approved, the working group will work toward developing a proposed criteria for recognition, a selection process, location for the Wall of Fame, and other considerations, all of which would be presented to council before proceeding. Options are provided should council wish to provide input, revise, or reject the drafted terms of reference, and hopefully we have at least one council member who would be willing to join that working group. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this? Councillor Sobalski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. No questions. I guess maybe just a bit of support as this ball got rolling a little bit more before the formalization of it. And therefore, I had the opportunity to listen in on a few conversations, and this is something that the town of Renfrew needs to get back in front of and get support of. So I believe that this is a great initiative, and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Now, I'm just going to throw it out here, and we don't have to do this right now, but we can either have the clerk send out an email of an expression of interest if anybody would like to be on that, or if we can all just accept the person who's already been doing it, if he's willing to do it. So I'm going to throw it out there. Councillor Sobalski, are you willing to be that person?
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. I'll continue to support the group and be that person.
Perfect. Any member of council want to put their name forward too, or all in support of Councillor Sobalski? Perfect. All in support of this motion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to development and environment. And the motion is that the Committee of the Whole receive the report on Department of Development and Environment and Planning Services coverage for 2026, and further that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council enter into a planning service agreement with the County of Renfrew to provide planning advice, assistance, and services to the municipality on an interim basis due to the town planner assuming the role of acting chief administrative officer for the term of the acting appointment, and further that the acting bylaw be brought forward to the February 10th, 2026 council meeting. Mover, please. Councillor Recorder, second by Reeve Emo, and I will turn it over to CAO Withers.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mayor Sidney. So during this period where I am unavailable to undertake day-to-day planning duties, we of course require backfill of those responsibilities. So kind of quickly upon embarking on this journey, I had a quick conversation with some staff internal to the department to determine whether there was a willingness to provide cover off on an interim basis. And so at this time, we do have our CBO Tom Webster providing interim coverage for the period of a few months, followed by our manager environmental services, Amanda Springer, who will finish the term. Along with that, being the town's principal planner, we also need professional planning services. So there's going to be a bit of a combination of hands when it comes to assisting with that. So we have asked the county, and the county has expressed a willingness to provide day-to-day planning support for our Planning Act applications and development approvals and just day-to-day planning stuff, whether it's interpreting the zoning bylaw in any way that Ashley needs some assistance with, or what have you. I will say that for the most part, our planning technician is capable of handling most day-to-day operations. It's just where some additional support is required, the county is willing to be there to assist. And we do have the draft service agreement before council that we can move forward to the 10th for ratification. And this will provide that day-to-day planning coverage. With respect to projects, we have a few projects that are currently either active or pending. The official plan review, of course, will continue under Mr. Simon's care. And we also have a zoning bylaw review that will follow the official plan. And we will very likely have consulting services in place to assist with that work. Similarly for the community improvement plan review, should that remain in the budget, would be undertaken by a consultant on our standing offer list. So really, I guess, an agglomeration of different different folks stepping in to assist in the interim, so that I can focus on the CAO responsibilities before me at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Hearing none. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to E.2.2. That the committee of the whole, excuse me, the committee of the whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council approve application number D-14-156 zoning bylaw amendment for lands known municipally as 23 Booth Road, having a roll number of 47-48-000-020-17375, and further that the amending bylaw be brought forward for adoption. Mover, please. Councillor McQuarter, seconded by Councillor McDonald, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So Brady Bemke, the owner of 1000355221 Ontario Inc., filed an application for a zoning bylaw amendment relating to lands known municipally as 23 Booth Road. So the purpose of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands from General Industrial M2 zone to General Industrial Exception 2 zone on a site-specific basis to permit additional industrial-related uses that are not currently listed as permitted. So until recently, the applicant has operated a construction business from the subject property, but he's since relocated those operations. So the applicant's now seeking to secure industrial tenants for the existing space, and he's identified that the prospective tenants whose proposed industrial uses are not currently permitted in the M2 zone. So under the current M2 zone, the permitted uses that aren't listed, that they would like to see listed, are automotive body shop, automotive commercial garage, automotive service station, towing establishment, and furniture or woods product shop. So to note, the town's current zoning bylaw does not have towing establishment defined, so that language has been included in the proposed amendment. All the other permitted uses are already defined in our zoning bylaw. The subject land is approximately 11 acres, and as previously stated, the applicant has operated a construction business from it. The surrounding land uses predominantly consist of general industrial with a commercial property to the northwest. The proposed additional uses are industrial in nature and generally compatible with the surrounding industrial land uses. Automotive and transportation-related uses are commonly located with industrial areas and are not anticipated to introduce any land use conflicts, provided all applicable zoning standards are met. The proposed amendment will provide additional flexibility within the general industrial zone by permitting a limited number of additional industrial-related uses while maintaining the intent and purpose of the existing zoning framework. The application has been circulated to prescribed public bodies, and there were no comments from external agencies or from the public to today's date. And then we did receive just one internal comment from the CBO. He noted that a building permit will be required, and also noted that there's currently no sanitary services available on the property. The applicant is aware of that, and they have been in contact with the chief building official to ensure that all applicable building code requirements can be met. So based on all of that, the staff are recommending approval of the application. Thank you.
Councillor Cebulski.
Thank you, through Mayor. To give me some background information, please, in regard to the shift, go to an automotive, could we potentially be getting into a brownfield environment, and what's that mean with this new zoning as far as, you know, hazardous, not hazardous waste, but just brownfield contaminants?
CEO?
Thank you. So it's currently a brownfield. So there's no change in that regard. it would need full investigation if it were to go to residential or a sensitive land use already in that spot. So this doesn't worsen that condition.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Review?
Just to tag on to Councillor Sobolski's question, would that not, I sound like a broken record, but would that not be something that we would try and regulate within the impound area? Because when you have, sometimes you have towed vehicles, they leak fluids. And so I know it's already a brownfield, but do we have an obligation to ensure it doesn't get any worse? Or do we know how bad it is, or how lesser amount it is?
See you.
Thank you. Generally speaking, no. So there are going to be other approvals that they're likely going to require from the MTO and likely the MOE that are going to deal with that. When it comes to an industrial land use, there's a lot of compliance involved, and so the town is just one piece of that. We're just really interested in the land use part of it and mitigating any conflicts. But as far as this is already an industrial property. You could put a manufacturing facility on this property without a zoning bylaw amendment.
Review?
Finally, the last question about the impound, I promise. Have we circulated it to the Solicitor General? Because sometimes those impounds have to be to meet certain regulations.
Thank you. This Solgen, I do not believe, is on our circulation list. We do circulate to the MTO. And the MOE, so they would be aware of this, and I'm sure would circulate it to their counterparts if there is anything of interest. I would imagine. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? All in favor? Thank you, council. Moving on to E.3, Financial and Corporate Service. That the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council approve the Town of Renfrew's financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2024 as presented. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McWhorter, and I will turn it over to our Deputy Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Council, Committee of the Whole. As everyone's aware, we were presented the financial statements at the last council meeting from our third-party auditor, McKillican Associates. There were some questions that followed up with that, just within regards to some reporting. So staff thought it was important to bring an information report as well as bring a report to get approval for the statements to be adopted by council. So what we've put in here is just some background information about reviewing financial statements, and how these statements present differently based off of PSAB than council might be familiar with when going through the financial reporting and budgeting process. So when council budgets, they're budgeting based on transactional information and focus on line-by-line expenses and revenues. Council's not reviewing or including budgets for amortization or investments in government business enterprises, any unfunded liabilities, or any future liabilities. But those are all identified in the financial statements. One note that came up, it was when reviewing the consolidated statement of operations and surplus. There was just some variances based off of variances in that due to the PSAB compliant financial statements. They don't actually show reserve transfers as part of the budget purposes. However, council shows a transfer into reserves in the expense section. They also show the transfer from reserves to finance operating and capital work. So staff provides some clarity on that. I'll provide a bit of a summary on that. We just provide some clarity to show the difference between what was reported for PSAB financial statements versus what's actual year-end transactions and what it means relative to surplus or revenue and expenses. So the 2024 budget column identified that we were budgeting for a deficit. That is what I was just referring to with the reserve transfers. So you have to pull out the financing from reserve, and you have to add back the expenses, where you're transferring it to reserves. That makes up almost all of that $2.2 million deficit. The 2024 actual column, below we've provided a breakdown what makes that column up. It is capital transferred to tangible capital assets and the increase in unfunded asset retirement obligations, post-employment benefits, net change in transfers from reserves, increase in equity in government business enterprises with both RHI and RPG. We went further from that and then broke this down to where the actual surplus would be, rather than showing a $7.2 million surplus. We split it across general general fund, water and sewer. As council can see in front of them, it boils down to $1 million back into the operating reserves in general, sewer, and water. Another note, this as a whole means that the net reserve transfers for 2024 is actually $71,740, rather than the budgeted $4.582 million reduction to reserves. This is also due to some of the capital projects not being completed in 24, so the full costs aren't financed and recognized for financial statement purposes. The completion of capital projects can occur in the year following the budgeted year, and it's not unusual and is observed on a case-by-case basis. The financial statements, if approved, will be posted on the town website, as well as the FIR will be on there as well as the budget whenever it's passed as well. These are all, will keep us in compliance, and they'll be viewable for the public and staff and council. Any questions? I'm happy to help.
Any questions from council? Review.
No, not a question, just thank you. I went in the very next morning and said, hey, look, this, the way he reported it makes it look like we have a deficit, and I was pretty sure we had a surplus going in. What happened? And so, it's nice that you explained it, so that the actual surplus is, 1.7 million, as opposed to, I think it was 5 million or something, that we were going to be in a deficit, if you looked at how the report was. So I was glad to see this, and I'm glad for the explanation. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Hearing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to infrastructure, public works. That the committee of the whole recommend the Renfrew Town Council authorize staff to proceed with the award of tender 2025-16-IPWE for a single axle plow truck to Freightliner North Bay in the amount of $379,626, excluding HST. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, second by Reeve Emo, and I will turn it over to Director Bishop.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So the replacement of a single axle plow truck was included in the 2025 capital budget for Public Works. This project includes the purchase of a plow truck to replace the existing 2015 5-ton plow truck. This project was released to tender on November 27, 2025, and closed on December 23rd. 6 vendors were registered and 2 bids were received, one from Freightliner North Bay and one from Antrim Western Star. Our budget in 2025 for this truck was $450,000, and both bids received were below the budgeted amount. Both vendors that submitted bids had met the specifications, but it's recommended that the project be awarded to Freightliner. It aligns with the town's existing fleet, supports consistency in parts, servicing, and operator familiarity, and it comes at a lower cost. Awarding at this time avoids potential price escalation and provides sufficient lead time for manufacturing and delivery ahead of the 2026-2027 winter season. Thank you.
Councillor Andrew Dick.
My apologies, Mayor Sidney. I have to declare on this because Antrim Star bid on it.
Okay.
So I have a conflict there. I had to Google it to make sure, so I do apologize.
So you will not be voting on this. Okay. Any other questions from council?
I always ask this question, so don't feel offended. Why a single axle and not a double axle?
Through you, Mayor. So my understanding is that the parking situation in the garage is pretty tight when all trucks are in there in the winter, and this truck was suitable for the operations that we need in order to replace the existing truck. And I don't know the cost difference, but it was approved in our capital for 2025.
Your cost difference is about 150 to 160,000. So I'm not arguing with it. I always worry about capacity, time on the road, time racing back to fill up with sand and salt. That's all.
Any other questions from council? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to E.5.2, that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council authorize staff to proceed with the award of tender 2025-17-IPWE for a 1-ton 4x4 pickup truck to Mac McKenzie Motors in the amount of $118,046, excluding HST, to be funded from the equipment reserves. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor McWhorter, and I'll turn it back over to Director Bishop.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So again, the replacement of a 2014 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 LT 1-ton pickup truck, including plow and sander, was included in the capital budget for Public Works. The existing vehicle has reached the end of its serviceable life and requires replacement to maintain reliable operations. So the capital amount budgeted in 2025 was $120,000. This project was released to tender on November 27th and closed on December 17th. 3 vendors were registered for the tender, but only one bid was received from Mac McKenzie Motors. So the options are to the town are to award the tender to Mac McKenzie Motors or to not award at all. Awarding to Mac McKenzie allows for the purchase of a 2026 Chevrolet Silverado LT 3500, which meets our tender specifications. This bid was within the approved budget. Our estimated delivery time is approximately 5 months, so award is recommended at this time to ensure delivery in advance of the next winter season. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Councillor Cebulski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Is this truck coming fit up with all accessories that's required?
Through you, Mayor. Sorry, yes, I didn't mention that. It does include the plow and sander.
Any other questions from council? Councillor McWhorter.
Just a statement through you, Mayor. 2 things. Glad to see this truck also is coming out of the reserve, same as the previous truck, so there's no tax implication there. And I'm happy to see this is coming from a local dealer. Really happy to see that. We keep the money in town. So just wanted to make that.
Absolutely. Any other questions from council? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to Legislative Services and Council Relations, E.6.1, that the Committee of the Whole recommend Renfrew Town Council adopt the amended changes to the Council Code of Conduct and formal complaint procedures and direct staff to bring forward the appropriate bylaw for adoption. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, second by Reeve Emo, and I will turn it over to Clerk Eric.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Just to address maybe some confusion, this item was originally brought forward to council back in November, the date being November 12th, 2025, which is the report that people see on the agenda. So no, that is not an error in the date, but just again that this conversation did take place. The amended or the recommended amendments were put forward. However, at the time there was a request to defer until legal opinion was sought, specifically to see about merging both the Council Code of Conduct with a procedural bylaw. So follow on that and updates. What's been updated on this report actually is just the timing. So a closed meeting of council did receive the legal opinion. That was earlier today with the report, and with no amendments has come back to council for further discussion. And just because it's been such a timeline, what I'll do is I'll just go over kind of the main highlights of it, the amendments that were recommended. These were both from an internal review as also with consultation with our integrity commissioner. So kind of starting in section 3, which is confidentiality, there was an added clause regarding access to information that was unrelated to decision making. Section 4, which is general conduct, the Integrity Commissioner had recommended deletion of clauses 4.3b, d, and e due to concerns about enforceability and clarity, but then an added section of 4.4 was added addressing the use and misuse of strong mayor powers. Section 8 on communications and media relations, so there was some minor word changes to clause 8.1 to 8.5 just for clarity, and clause 8.5 was amended to clarify that members may initiate and participate in their own appeals. That's with regards to, appeals specifically to tribunals. Section 9 was interaction with staff, so clause 9.1 was removed as it was believed to be unnecessary. Clause 9.2b was updated to include the term reprisal. Clauses 9.3 to 9.5 amended to reflect the CAO model and update to address strong mayor powers. And then in the Part B, which is kind of the formal complaint procedure, Clause 3, the recommendation to remove the $150 fee, which was in line with the recommendation that there should be no fee or barrier in making a complaint to the Integrity Commissioner. Clause 4, removed due to redundancy following the fee elimination. Clause 6, updated to reflect the Municipal Act provision allowing direct filing with the Integrity Commissioner if preferred due to added confidential concerns. Clause 7 to 23, which are just minor adjustments to align with best practices. So this has been brought back forward to council. As I noted, the legal opinion was received and council had made no further direction and amendments. And so it's before council for your consideration.
Any questions from council? Councilor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And I met with the clerk and went through it, and I appreciate your time. I had two areas of concern. One was 3.4, and then she informed me that came right from the lawyer's office, so I'm fine with that now. The other one I had concerns more with wordsmithing was 9.5F, and I've spoken to her with regard to, and again more about the wordsmithing, so I'll leave it with her to address. In the meantime, to the clerk, Mayor, if you can touch up on 8.4, specifically with any use of social media in any form. And can you just elaborate on that and give clarification? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor.
Yep.
Sorry, section 8, right? 8.4. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the wording right so I have it. So any use of social media in any form by a member constitutes communication with the public that is governed by this code of conduct. Members shall identify in any social media communication that the views expressed by the member are the views of the member personally and do not represent the views of the municipality. And I believe based on the conversation, Councillor McDonald, you were looking for just overall when a member goes on social media and how they represent themselves on social media?
Thank you. For clarification, even if it's not work-related, it's an own personal opinion with regard to the sunset, but profanity is used. Individuals will be held accountable for improper language, that sort of thing.
Through you, Mayor. What I would suggest is that as a representative of this council, an elected official, whether you are stating you are a councillor at the time or you're out in the public walking, you are always representing the town. It is hard for members of public to make those distinctions. And so what I would strongly suggest, and I think what this policy is kind of addressing, is that if you're an elected official, you are always an elected official. You're not paid by the hour, and therefore what you do is a reflection of you, yourself, and the town.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney, and through you. So I'm not a fan of this at all. Social media, I'm a big advocate of social media. I use it quite a bit. And, you know, if you look through Ontario, there's tons of councillors and MPPs and MPs that use social media to get the word out to the public. And I just feel this is handcuffing us as councillors. And personally, I think we're signing a death wish if we agree to this. We are, you know, we're saying, yeah, we're not allowed to do what we do on social media. I have a Councillor Andrew Dick Facebook page. It's pretty evident whose page it is. It's not Andrew Dick, it's Councillor Andrew Dick. I've done the research. I've spoke with my advisors and legal opinions on this, and I've been told a totally different thing than what our lawyers are telling our staff. So that's the whole fun of when it comes to legal, it's an opinion, right? So, and no fault to our staff, but our staff and the corporation is paying our lawyer for his opinion or her opinion. So they can spin it any way they want, and it's just like me. I'm paying for my lawyer's opinion, and he'll spin it my way. So I'm not a fan of this. I just think it's handcuffing us as politicians representing the public. I'm not in favor of this, and there's a lot more that I think I could go into when it comes to our integrity commissioner, how our integrity commissioner is also the person who advises on this. And I'm not a fan of that either. So Tony Fleming's the one that helps write this policy, but he's also the one that enforces it. I'm not a fan of that because he's a paid contractor from the town of Renfrew. Paid. So if we as councillors wanted to get together and pool our money, we could get a legal opinion that's going to be totally opposite of this and be in favor of what we want. So those are just my thoughts, my concerns. I'm not in favor of this, and I won't be in support of this tonight. Thanks. Sorry, Mayor Sidney. Yeah. This is no fault to Clerk Eric's work on this. She's done a great job. She probably put hours and hours and hours into this, and I just don't agree with it, and that's okay.
I'm just going to jump in here. Just for clarification, the way I see it is, it's not handcuffing you from going on social media. It's simply stating that if you're going to enter into a debate online about something that council did or didn't do or whatever, that it's coming from your personal opinion, not my opinion. You know what I mean? Like as a collective. If they see it as a councillor doing it, then it's almost like speaking on behalf of everybody. But if you just simply state, this is my opinion, that's it. That's all it's saying. In my opinion, that's what I think it says. Yeah.
So thank you, Mayor Sidney, for that, because you just proved my point on this whole issue. You had an opinion on this, and I have an opinion, and I totally disagree with what you just said, because as a representative for the town of Renfrew, voted by the taxpayers, my name is Councillor Andrew Dick. Mm-hmm. So when I speak, I'm speaking on behalf of Councillor Andrew Dick on what the people voted me in for, and if that is to go against something, I'm going against it or for it as Councillor Andrew Dick. I'm not representing all of you guys. I'm representing Councillor Andrew Dick, and I'm representing the taxpayers of Renfrew. Hence, where it's totally, you see it one way, I see it one way. Sadly, we have Tony Fleming who sees it his way, and his way is always going to be right, and we're not even allowed to defend ourselves. Totally off topic. Sorry.
Okay. Clerk?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. What I would state is that neither one of you are wrong. However, I do think the clarity on the policy itself is more that not so much whether you state you're a councillor or don't state you're a councillor, state your opinion or not state your opinion. I believe the intent of the policy and the way it's written is more along the lines is that when you're elected, you're always a councillor. So whatever you do, whether you state your opinion, whether you decide to make lewd comments, post a funny meme that probably is not politically correct, and I can name 100 other examples that I've seen within the industry. The clause itself, the terminology used in the clause is to represent that you are a councillor, you represent your views, and you're held accountable for those based on ethical code of conduct, and are you making the best representation?
Councillor Andrew Dick.
I believe this is the third time I've spoken on this, so I don't think I can speak after this one. So I'm going to use me as an example because I'm not your typical politician. And I think that's evident over my last 3 years on the things I've said and the Integrity Commission reports I've had held against me. Bottom line is, I believe, and I got voted in because of who I am and the way I speak. I don't sugarcoat things. I am very honest. I never lie. And sometimes, as we can look in the past, I stated my opinion once based on what the taxpayers voted me in for, and I had someone offended and write an Integrity Commission report on me because I said the truth. And the truth hurt somebody. It hurt their feelings. And I got in trouble for that. And that's wrong. And I hear what Clerk Eric's saying. Lewd comments or whatever, yeah. But when I'm speaking the truth, I shouldn't be handcuffed on social media because I'm speaking the truth and my opinion as a councillor. And if the 1% don't like what I'm saying, okay. I don't like this policy. I don't like how it was written. I do feel we are being handcuffed. Because what's going to happen in the future, we're going to say something on social media, and it's not even going to be that bad. It's going to be the truth. And we're going to be hauled, we're going to be like, nope, you got the policy right there. You shouldn't have said that. So I'm not in agreement with this. So I'm making it clear. Mayor Sidney, thank you. That's my third time on this topic. I can no longer speak on it. So that's it for me.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Directed towards the clerk. With regard to 8.4 then, is that the standard, or are you able to provide us maybe with some other options that are out there in terms of language that might accommodate concerns that are being expressed today?
Through you, Mayor. So overall, the clause has not been amended with this, I guess, addition, or sorry, this, what am I trying to say? So that whole clause has been there before. It is not recommended for any changes rather than referring to section, it's referred to code of conduct. So it has been in our policy all along. Should council wish to add further amendments to it, I mean, certainly that is your option. Council there's a few options that are listed in the report. One is to put forward amendments, one is to not adopt any changes at all, and the policy would stand as it is. The policy does stand. This is not a new policy. At this point in time, it's just for recommendations on improvements to align with best practices in consultation with our Integrity Commissioner, and however that is viewed, he had reviewed that and made no recommended changes to that clause either. So,
Councillor Sobolski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, can we have a potential review of the whole 8.0 section, the communications and media relations, so that we can further this discussion? Because for myself personally, this is one of 3 jobs that I work very hard at, and I do use social media to reach people in my main position as a salesperson. I have a bicycle business, and if you're telling me that I have to compromise my day-to-day workings on my social platform for how I need to conduct business with what the moving world is using, because I'm a representative of the town of Renfrew, that's unfair. And therefore, this needs to be reviewed. And that's what Councillor Andrew Dick's trying to get at. We are in a big, moving social mess, to sum it up. And yes, we need to be monitored and kept in check, because there are rules that we are not allowed to say to people, but to limit our social ability under this one envelope, I find, is a little short-sighted. So I would like to have this reviewed.
I'm just getting clarification on one thing. So here's the question that I have, taking Councillor Andrew Dick's point, taking Councillor Sobolski's point. I also own a business that uses social media. My understanding, and that's the clarification piece, is I'm under the impression that It's if we make a statement regarding municipal business. Like if somebody puts something on What's Up Renfrew and we jump on there and go crazy, and I don't mean crazy in a bad way, I just mean like we go off on it, I interpret it as this is my opinion. But as far as like, then that's why I wanted clarification. Is it solely for if you're discussing municipal stuff, or is it overall everything? So that's kind of what I was looking for. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor. Again, going back to if you're expressing a view, and there are members of council who use their private individual page, they use their pages that are identified as councillors. What it is indicating is that if you're expressing a view, it should be noted that that is your view, or should at least be kind of clarified that that is your view. Further to what the policy is saying is that you should be conducting yourself in an ethical manner, which means that in most cases, you're a counselor morning, afternoon, and night. Your job, you don't get to take that hat off. And so again, if you're expressing your views, I would say that if you have alternative businesses, short of contravening the Conflict of Interest Act, right? How you promote your business on social media, unless you're stating something that is conflict of interest for the town to say the town fully supports my business, there is differentiation between those two.
Review.
So if I might, maybe this helps clarify. So if, for instance, Councillor Cebulski, you own your business. I sit on the Algonquin Trail Committee, and you're not happy with the progress we've made in making it multi-use. That's a legitimate criticism, and even directing it personally at me, saying I don't do enough, I'm too late. Well, don't say I'm too lazy. Don't bring back enough information, maybe not, don't think about stuff. I think that's legitimate. If you make a comment suggesting that I haven't done it because I was receiving payments or favors, that's where you cross the line. So I think I'm not sure I'm going to be able to explain this, but I think I understand and feel comfortable with. So that, to me, that's where the line is yeah, unfair game, as long as you don't suggest I'm corrupt, exceptionally stupid, or more than average stupid. Somebody something, or deliberately not doing it because I disagreed with it. Because the other piece is, you put in your support and effort to a council decision, like myself, and if you see that county council's made a decision to do something and I haven't pushed hard enough to get that, then yes, that's legitimate. So that, I guess that's the distinction. I don't see a problem with you using your business platform to criticize where, we don't do enough, we don't widen enough shoulders to share the highway. We don't have enough rugged bike paths in Griffith. So I think that's legitimate.
Councillor Cebulski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor, and thank you, Revimo, for the back and forth. I believe we're close, and the reason I say we're close is because we're still interpreting this. And therefore, you and I may have an understanding that I'm not offside, but to anyone looking in from the outside what the social media is and sees that comment could feel I'm offside. And now to Councillor Dick's comments, I have an integrity commission report because they felt my comment to the county in this hypothetical scenario was offside. Therefore, although we understand maybe how it's written, it's how others interpret it, and therefore it needs to be cleaned up.
That I don't disagree with. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And to the point of you can be ethical in your statements but hurt someone's feelings, and I think that's what you mentioned earlier. So we can all have the different opinions like we just touched about. I'd be comfortable with a review of, I think you brought it up, Councillor Cebulski, just a review of that section. Okay. And to the clerk's point, it hasn't been touched in a while. Maybe we can see what's out there with regard to best practices and make it more current and applicable to where we want to go with this. So just some ideas.
Clerk.
And I'll continue, but what do you need from us if we want to move forward with it?
Well, there need to be a motion on the table, which I can help with the wording in just a sec. Again, I think just to help a bit of clarity, my response to you, Councillor McDonald, was your question specific to how someone conducts themselves on social media versus, I think, the terminology that council is getting dug into. I think 8.3, section 8.3 and 8.4 are very clear in that you're not restricting individuals' opinions. You can express your opinions, right? I think where people are starting to have concerns or this conversation's going a little bit sideways on is your specific question about if a member of council did something on Facebook or social media that was outside like your original wording of how they conduct themselves through social media. Am I wrong?
Councillor McDonald?
No, original question correct, but it's morphed into, the discussion has morphed into something different with other issues. So I think it's important to address those issues, and I'm comfortable if Councillor Zabalski wants to make a motion with regard to a review.
So recommend wording in that case, because it's direction of staff and we're in committee of the whole, is that committee of the whole directs staff to conduct further review on section 8.0 communications and media relations, and further that staff be, so that would be one. And then I would probably want to seek clarity as whether or not that review is being conducted based on what our current practice is, which is seeking opinion from our integrity commissioner, or if there is an additional motion that is being asked for an outside review. And if so, there is budgetary considerations with that.
Councillor Spolsky?
Thank you. At this time, because we are committed to our integrity commissioner, I don't want to adjust from that. I'd like to let him have this first, and then we can have that discussion another day about that integrity commissioner.
Oh. Yeah, CEO?
Maybe just an opportunity for those on council who have specific concerns we can maybe regroup on this and take a look at it and see if there's anything that can be adjusted to address any specific concerns. I think that might be the easiest approach, as opposed to going over specific details here. Maybe we just come back perhaps in February with another draft.
Procedural elements. Through you, Mayor, I'm confused. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to ask it, do we need a motion to do this, or can we just, like, because the CAO is saying we can just go back and look at it and then bring back a different draft. So procedurally, what's the process?
So through you, Mayor. So currently the motion on the floor, there is a motion on the floor, which has been moved and seconded, which either can be addressed or dealt with, which is to adopt the amended changes and bring forward the appropriate bylaw for adoption. There are other options presented in the report, and if council so chooses, they can put another option on the table as a motion, or they can defer what they're currently looking at with that secondary motion to direct staff to review section 8. So there's a couple, I think council needs to decide what they want to do in this scenario.
So one, we make a motion to do review of 8, or we do a motion to, what's the word? Defer. And do it that way.
If I might, Your Worship, I think it makes straight line sense. If I'll make the motion that we defer further decision-making on the code of conduct. Once we've had that discussion, then we have a conversation about what might come after that, what the next steps are.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Sobolski? Do you need more time?
Remo and Sobolski, good.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Council. All right. Moving on to E.6.2.
I'm sorry, Your Worship. I thought there was a secondary piece where there was a request to take a look at Section 8 of the code. Because I thought there were two things. One was to defer, then the next was what was the next course of action on it. And I thought that there was going to be a motion to talk about reviewing Section 8 with the Integrity Commissioner, was my understanding. But I may have, like they did in Dallas some 35 years ago, woke up and it was different.
Through you, Mayor, at this point in time, the motion to defer means that it comes back to the next committee of the whole meeting as is. There's been no other direction given.
So just to make it clean, I'll make the motion that an opinion be sought on Section 8 with the idea being that we update the language if possible and include it in the deferred document for Council's consideration.
So I would suggest that we don't push it to the next meeting, like we don't force it to come back to the next meeting if we need more time. So currently I think what the clerk has indicated is that a deferral moves it automatically to the next meeting. I'm suggesting we probably need more time, potentially. If we can get to the 10th, great. If not, it would be good to include in that motion that we bring it back, say, by the 24th at the latest.
Makes sense.
All right. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McDonald, any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. All right, moving on to that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Renfrew Town Council approve the proposed recommendations to the town sign bylaw and that a revised bylaw be brought forward to Council for adoption. Mover, please. Revimo, second by Councillor McDonald, and I will turn it over to Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Sidney. In preparation for the upcoming municipal election on October 26, 2026, staff identified the need to update the current sign bylaw to include provisions specifically for election signs. This recommendation is based on observation from the past federal election, as well as information received through the AMCTO election training, which both the clerk and I attended. These updates are intended to clarify rules, improve enforceability, and ensure compliance with legislative requirements. While the primary focus of this revision is on election-related provisions, a collaborative approach was taken. All department directors or their designates were consulted to ensure that changes across the entire sign bylaw, not just the election provisions, were appropriately reviewed and incorporated. The main changes included the addition of clear, consistent rules for election signs regarding placement, timing, size, and removal. These updates balance candidates' ability to advertise with the town's responsibility to address non-compliant or unsafe signage. Other updates include the reformatting of the bylaw to align with the town's new bylaw template, updating of department names, and strengthening wording to support good governance. Staff recommend that the sign bylaw be updated with these changes and that a revised bylaw be brought forward for adoption by council. These updates ensure that the bylaw aligns with the new town template and operational requirements across all departments. Committee of the Whole also has the option to provide additional amendments during discussion, and alternatively, Committee of the Whole may choose to only amend the original bylaw, which is bylaw 46/2022, to include just the required election-related clauses. However, this option would limit updates to just those election provisions, leaving the remainder of the bylaw unchanged, which may also result in inconsistencies with the new template. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Council? Councillor Sobolski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just curious, with the election signs, I see it's a big piece. It looks well done. Where do we fall in line with other municipalities? Is that an answer that could be easily answered for our rules compared to our neighboring communities? Thanks.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Sidney. When I did look over the bylaw, I did compare this to 8 different municipalities in the region and within Ontario, just to make sure that we were covered and meeting most of those election points on there.
Any other questions from council? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Moving on. That Renfrew Town Council rise from committee of the whole. Mover, please. Read people. Councillor Porter. All in favor? We are now at a committee of the whole. Moving on to external boards. Economic Development Advisory Committee minutes. Chair Cybulski, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Quickly again, so the group is starting to find its soul. The minutes will show that a little bit, but this is the first meeting where the word Ride Renfrew has brought itself out. So it's a new idea that we're working on, communicating with groups that do ride through Renfrew or could use Renfrew as a home base. The initiation is ATVs, motorcycles, bicycles, snow machines, trying to figure out a way of what makes the town of Renfrew a great place to stop in the middle of the destination or be their start or finish of a destination, and a way that we can try and engage the community and community members that have restaurants and stores. So that's the bulk of the meeting minutes in this, along with some other good updates from the county and Algonquin schools. So any questions, please ask. Or
I just have a comment I want to add, and I shared it with you before the council meeting or earlier today, that when we did the delegation to the Minister of Tourism and Culture, we specifically talked about how all of the trails that do come in to Renfrew and how the trails are being extended, and how, wayfinding signs in, Almont come to Renfrew kind of thing, and signs here. And the minister was very receptive of that, gave a couple of ideas on where we can get some funding for that, was very eager to help us. It was a very good delegation, and that was specifically discussed with the trails and the impact and the great location that Renfrew is, kind of like the gateway and all that stuff. So the minister was very positive, I guess would be the right way to word it. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you.
Just so you know that that was a discussion.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor Sidney, and I hope that continues to develop and opportunities come, and I hope throughout more work that gets put in, we can find some areas to find out what's being successful in other communities, and maybe we can implement some of that here, try and copy and learn from them. So,
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chair Cybulski? Hearing none. Moving, no items for consideration. Correspondence. Municipal correspondence, that's for information purposes. I don't know, Reeve, if you wanted to mention anything about the Warden's Caucus?
Very quickly, Warden Murphy succeeded me. Have every confidence in her abilities. She also presented, and I presented it to Councillor Cybulski's committee. I had put together a motion which I think will stimulate first-time homeowners purchasing, and also free up some of the existing stock. Renfrew County and Renfrew itself have a number of people who are overhoused, meaning there might be a single or a couple, usually a little older, my age, living by themselves in a 3 or 4 bedroom home. And there are some suggestions about how to help them make a decision and reward them financially for selling their home and moving to something else. So the Warden's Caucus took my information. They're sending it to their CAOs and their financial officers to try and massage it. It's one of those prongs that we're constantly pushing on about affordability, so hopefully good news will come from that.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on to confirmation of minutes. The Renfrew Town Council confirmed the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated January 13th, 2026. Mover, please. Councillor Cybulski, second by Councillor McDonald. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Moving on to bylaws. That the bylaws listed on the agenda of January 27th, 2026 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. bylaw 2026-03, Renfrew Hydro and Renfrew Power Generation Land Transfer Bylaw. Bylaw 2026-04, 2026 Interim Boring Bylaw, and that. Sorry, totally missed that. My bad. Moving on to J.1, matters arising from committee of the whole. The Renfrew Town Council adopt the final resolutions considered in committee of the whole on January 13, 2026. Number 1, the Renfrew Town Council authorized the borrowing of money from time to time to meet current operating and capital expenditures for the year 2026, and further that the bylaw be brought forward to the January 27th council meeting for adoption. 2, that Renfrew Town Council approve the establishment of an interim tax levy and the authorization of the payment of taxes as well as penalty and interest charges for non-payment of taxes or any installment by the due date, and to bring forward a bylaw for the January 27th council meeting for adoption. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, seconded by Revimo. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Yep. That Renfrew Town Council adopt the final resolutions considered in committee of the whole on January 27, 2026. E.3.1, that Renfrew Town Council approve the Town of Renfrew financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2024 as presented. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McWhirter. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Now going on to bylaws.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, there's just a clerical wording thing. That the bylaws listed on the agenda of January 27, 2026 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. The 2026-03 Renfrew Hydro and Renfrew Power Generation Land Transfer Bylaw. 2026-04 2026 Interim Boring Bylaw, and 2026-05 the 2026 Interim Tax Levy Bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, second by Reeve. Any discussion on these? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Motions of which previously been given. The Renfrew Town Council directs staff to bring forward a report to the next council meeting addressing the questions and concerns raised by the delegation on January 13, 2026 regarding the water meter replacement program. Mover, please. Councillor Sobalski, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Councillor Sobalski, would you like that?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe this is just tidy housekeeping to follow up on the delegation from Mr. Rizicki. I believe he entered some great questions, and I think there's some conversation to be had that would be wholesome at the round table.
Perfect. Any other review?
I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Councillor Sobalski, and I was already headed to a meeting with our friends in the finance department because I was worried about the viewing of the financial statements and how they were presented last time. So I just tacked this on, and I think they have some really good ideas about adding information to the questions. So there'll be some more fulsome information coming on top of what Mr. Rizicki has asked for. So I think they know what they're doing, and I think you'll be impressed with what you get back.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to L.2. Reviewmo's long-term financial response plan. The Renfrew Town Council directs staff to research and consult in developing a long-term financial response plan which will review the 2026 operating budget of the Town of Renfrew with a view to recommending all relevant reductions, including but not limited to implementing shared services with other public sector partners, reduction in levels of service for municipal divisional services, reduction of staffing levels, developing ongoing and prolonged investment revenue, and all other measures or strategies that emerge during consultations and research, and furthermore a preliminary or draft list of recommendations would be expected by May 31st in order to facilitate delegations for the 2026 AMO conference. And the final document would be presented to the mayor and council of the 2026 to 2030 Town of Renfrew Council. Mover, please. Reeve Emo. Seconded by Councillor McDonald. Reeve.
Thank you. What I think members of the Budget Committee, council, staff all expressed some frustration, or a lot of frustration, about the budget process. You know, the overarching reach of the strong mayor powers, and then also the ability to implement or to guide along the development of a long-term plan. You know, I think, as I said earlier, we had a number of conversations about what we thought was important and what we'd like to highlight, but none of that could be forwarded by us because of the restrictions to the next term directly. And so this allows basically the unleashing of staff to say, you know, we have a problem. We've got that 6 to 7% lump. How are we going to deal with that? You know, I think when they look around, they're going to see other affordability projects or things that are going on around the province. So you'd like to give them lots of time to consult with whoever they need to consult with, to be innovative, and come back to the new council when they walk through the door. Because as soon as they walk through the door, the new mayor has to issue basically a budget edict, and then the new council has to be aware after they're educated, so when the budget does come from the mayor, that they're able to participate. So I think there has to be some guardrails and also some expectation of how does that 6% or 7% lump get dealt with. So that I tried to be as broad as I could, but at the same time not too restrictive. So I'm very anxious to see what comes back.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, through you, and thank you, Reeve, for bringing this forward. I think we desperately need to find efficiencies, and this is a step in the right direction, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Any notices of motion? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve. Thank you, Mayor. The Reeve was part of the discussion of this. Thank you, Mayor. That council directs staff to investigate the feasibility, risks, benefits, and full implications of bringing the town of Renfrew's water and wastewater services under a municipally owned corporation and report back to council. Thank you. The Reeve and myself have had conversations about it. So
thank you. Moving on for the confirmatory bylaw. The Renfrew Town Council adopt the confirmatory bylaw 2026-06 and that it be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover, please. Reeve Emo. Seconded by Councillor Sobalski. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Upcoming meetings of council. Regular council meeting February 10th, 2026 at 5:30. Economic Development Advisory Committee February 10th, 2026 at 10 a.m. And we are officially adjourned at 7:55. Thank you, council.